So why don't we start with really the beginning? You have been at iManage for a number of years, right before the explosive growth took off. I'd love to learn about how knowledge management has evolved under your leadership.
Sure. And thank you for asking. And I mean, to start off, I do want to give credit where credit's due. So the program originated under our iManage support team. So our original leader, still leader, current leader, I should say, of support, knew that we had always had an enormous amount of knowledge to harness from just the support team alone, not to mention, of course, the rest of the organization. And the way it started was we had a knowledge program specific to iManage support. And that was an excellent starting point, again, because of the wealth of knowledge that the team had globally across all of our products. And for us, the way it worked was it was initially just me coming on, starting up the program under support. I was able to bring on one team member, so there were a couple of us for the early years. And we were using a knowledge-centric approach where we were using like a common case yes model where we were getting information from subject matter experts in support. They themselves were also writing articles. And what we found ourselves with very quickly, given just that there were two of us and several people across the support team globally who wanted to write articles or contribute to articles, was in order for us to get quality content published, we felt the need to review everything and edit everything before it actually got published. And before we knew it, we had a backlog of articles and content to review and publish, and we turned ourselves into having to work only on a priority basis. And we just weren't able to scale. We always had a massive backlog that was growing. And it became a detriment, actually, because it started to discourage people who wanted to author and publish material that was relevant, that we needed to get out to our customers and to our partners. And so what we were able to do is transition that using a team publishing model. We use Zendesk as part of our support system, or as our support system, as well as for our help center, which is one of many enablement offerings we have publicly available online. And for the help center specifically, we wanted to be able to get, of course, all the existing support team members to be able to publish content, but keep the quality. And that was, of course, one of the biggest challenges was how can we make it so that those who know the information the best can author still, but that we can keep quality in mind and make sure it's accurate as well as clear for people to consume and to use. And the fast forward to the end result with several tools between Zendesk as well as Writer and a couple of others, and using this team publishing model, we were able to grow to not only still include contributions from the support team, but then a total of 17 teams across the organization at our peak just last year, as a matter of fact, which consists across all those teams of nearly 50 writers or contributors, subject matter experts, who wrote articles, wrote guides, full-scale guides as well, and published them with quality still included, still at the forefront. But we no longer had to rely on the two of us doing a complete review and edit for every single article that went through. And so by changing that model where we were able to empower subject matter experts who knew this information the best and who wanted to be able to author and publish material, they just needed some guidance to keep quality in mind and to keep other related topics in mind. We were able to do a bit of empowerment and some ramp up, but then also use tools to our advantage to help them and then ultimately just let them run their own publication model.
That is incredible. What would you say is the percentage of articles pre this tooling and team publishing model that you all felt like you wanted to review or needed to review? Sounds like 100%. To what is the number that you review and edit now?
It's a really good question. So I should say too, we did grow. So we had the team of two. We've grown to a whopping 4 people now. But so we added two more people, but they were key roles. So to answer your question first, and then I'll dive into how the roles also helped with that, the additional roles. Percentage wise, we still ideally would like to have some eyes on 100% of the articles that go out. But I can tell you, last year alone, we had nearly 1,000 articles published using team publishing. And these varied from, in some cases, kind of short form communications to, again, full scale articles and guides that are used as reference material by our customers and by our partners. So to be able to have full eyes on every single one of those articles, of course, is impossible with a team of two, even a team of four. So one of the roles that we hired, the two additional roles that we had, included a copy editor, a seasoned copy editor. And working with the copy editor role, we developed what we call our quality content program. So the idea behind the quality content program is the copy editor role is going to look at basically a sample of articles that get published on roughly a weekly basis. And that person builds up a queue, looks at what's been edited and published. And if there's anything that needs to be modified in any way based on our style requirements, maybe based on just asking some questions for clarification around accuracy, anything to keep branding, messaging, as we would expect it to be, that program allows us to do that. But instead of course, looking at all nearly 1,000 articles throughout the year with one person in that role, we look at a sample set. And that person's very familiar with what teams we have publishing, what authors on those teams are publishing. We know, because we do some ramp up for each team that comes into the team publishing model, we know if there's someone who maybe is a relatively newer author or contributor, that we might want to spend a little bit more time working with them. And the copy editor role doesn't actually do the editing. He actually works with our contributors directly in a one-on-one session. So even with keeping scale in mind, we're still able to have that one-on-one interaction to further empower and educate our contributors and writers. And again, tooling does come into play here. But yeah, just from the percentage perspective, we certainly can't hit 100% like we were trying to do before, or that we were actually doing before. But the difference is that we generally see fewer things that we need to give guidance on or correct. And then on top of that, there's zero backlog. So the information that our teams need to get out to our customers and to our partners has no delay. They write it, they peer review amongst their teammates, sometimes go to us for guidance as well. But generally speaking, they can take it and run with it and publish it.
The year before you all did 1,000 articles, Karl, how many did you do?
Very good question. So if we're talking about, especially for the support team, because the support team does drive a lot of our content in our help center resource, at least, I would say we did maybe a total of 100 to 200 articles.
Wow.
And again, that's with one team. We were able to not only take that team and help them move along further, again, without a backlog and without having that discouraging factor that I might just not even get this published after I write it. But then we were also able to bring on other teams from all across the organization that appeal to various parts of our customer base and then roles within our customer base who need various types of support and guidance, and also within our partner community.
Well, I am so excited to dive into your tactics in making this incredible, really transformation happen, Karl. So maybe we start with the team growth. How did you advocate for your team growing, really doubling in the span of a year?
Yeah, great question. I have to say, as an organization, I'm very fortunate that our organization values content, values proper messaging and guidance to the field for our customer base, certainly, and also for our partner base. And it's essential. And so for, our team is one of several teams that owns content and various types of content. And so across all of our teams, it's something that we value, and that's a must. That's a required starting point. But what happened was the team publishing model actually is what allowed us to justify growing 100% within a year. And that was because we knew the value was already there, that the articles that were being published in this very slow model, the old model, were valuable, that people were using them. Everything that we put out was getting used. We would have various ways of promoting those articles, which of course furthered the consumption or the awareness of those articles being available. But what we didn't have was, again, we just didn't have the means for people to just publish when they needed to. And then because we were working on that priority system, it also became a challenge to figure out what is the highest priority in a sea of articles that have a high priority or other resources that needed to be published. And so going to this model allowed us to justify that, and these two roles we added. So initially it was we had one technical communicator on the team, and then when we grew a couple of years ago, when we grew, we had a copy editor, as I mentioned, and then we had a person who came on as a technical writer. And the way we've actually, which again speaks to the success of this program, we were actually two of the three people, I should say, not all, but two of the three people have already been promoted to do more specialized functions, because this system, the team publishing system, is really moving at its own pace. And so one of the original person on the team, she's now a dedicated release manager. So for all of our product releases that are published and related communications that are published into our help center, she's able to manage that full time, which is better because we have a dedicated resource for that now versus having to straddle several work streams. And the technical writer has actually become our content development manager and is the guide, the internal guide for our team publishing team. So really, he's the person who helps to ramp them up, helps to get them going, helps to answer questions in the meantime, maybe if they're still kind of working through some parts of the process before being really comfortable with publishing. And but at the same time, it's allowed us to have a person dedicated just to help manage the team publishing function and expand to other types of resources that we want to start providing to our customer and partner base too. And the copy editor role, that's such an essential role that we really need to have to make this successful. And again, it's really just to be able to have the intention to still have quality content published, but without having to have a team of copy editors or a team of technical writers to back up the whole model.
So when did you all start to think about a writing system being part of this the scaling stack?
Very good question. So the original copy editor we had on the team was essential to us acquiring a writer. And what became very apparent was that in those first few months where we were using our quality content program, that program by itself was showing value and was helping give people guidance. But oftentimes the copy editor had to give repeat guidance, similar feedback, and a lot of it stemmed from your basic grammatical type corrections that any of us could potentially have in our materials, to organization specific stylistic rules and terminology, especially rules that otherwise would have gone unnoticed. And so instead of having the copy editor have to spend that much more time with each individual to give them guidance on these elements that are critical, I mean, absolutely critical, from both an accuracy perspective in our content, but then also from a readability, clarity perspective, and then of course for branding. Just to make sure that things that we produce do fall in line with our organization and what our organization's goals are with our customers and partners in mind. And so that made it very easy for us to say, looking at a tool like Writer is exactly what we need, because it allows, again, on the team publishing side, it empowers our authors to get corrections on the fly, to know if they've used a term incorrectly or used the wrong term perhaps. And it doesn't require them to remember all these rules. It doesn't require them to look up in a very large style guide that we as seasoned writers love to use. But as someone who is doing this as a second part of their job, it's a lot to remember to go and look up the rules or to even know that a rule exists. And so this way we were both able to cut down the load on our copy editor, who was working through this quality content program and doing these one-on-one sessions for additional guidance after somebody's published something. So cut down that person's load, but then more importantly, it allowed us to catch some of these things before they actually went out into a published version of an article or a guide or any other resource. And once we saw the value in that, and on top of it, one of the biggest things for us, undoubtedly, grammatical fixes and some basic stylistic fixes are always essential, especially for readability and clarity, and just, of course, having polished material available for people to use. But what was especially important was using or incorporating our own terminology catalog. So having our own suite of terms that we have always had to refer back to or give people guidance on. Again, they no longer had to remember the difference between term A or term B. It was just built into the tool, and I told them, you've used term A, we want you to use term B, and it was a done deal.
Karl, how did you get budget for Writer?
The biggest qualifier for us was we were in a year where we had just added 2 new people to a team that was only comprised of 2 people to begin with. So as we said earlier, 100% growth within a year. So we already increased the number of resources we had available on our team, and we had specialized resources, which was great for us. But to look ahead and to say, let's do that again next year or the year after, it's not to say that it's not going to be necessary, especially as the organization grows and our needs grow, and the supporting teams that feed into team publishing grow. But more so that what would give us the most benefit without just saying, let's add another person. And again, especially for those who are in team publishing, having that direct contact has always been valuable, direct contact with our team for guidance. But more often than not, it also benefits them to not have to worry about coming to us every single time and asking questions every single time, or potentially missing something and then not even coming to us in the first place just because it wasn't known. So Writer gave us that person that we needed potentially in a future headcount or a future resource request, and probably more. And so looking at the cost of adding more people to the team versus adding a tool that we can, as an existing team, help to manage, work with other content teams to also, again, further further the scope of the tool and the usability of the tool or the applications of the tool. But really just have something in place that makes it easier for those who are putting in the time to write, putting in the time to do their own editing or peer reviews, and not have to worry about going back to that backlog model or that constant review and edit model.
That is so awesome. I am so happy to hear that. What have been some of the challenges? You've definitely gotten to the promised land, but it has not been without its challenges. And I'd love to hear about those challenges and anything that you would have done differently, both in using Writer to scale and moving to the team publishing model in general.
When it comes to in some of the challenges that we saw early on, and actually in one case it still is with us, the biggest one I think has been consistent user adoption. Where, for a contributor who maybe wrote 2 articles 6 months ago, and now that person's coming back because they need to write something else, if they weren't using Writer consistently for other applications outside of authoring and publishing through the team publishing model, they may have forgotten that it was there. It may have become disabled in their browser, and it's not top of mind for them like it is for us, of course. So that's one. And so just making the person aware that this is something that you can incorporate or you should incorporate for all the reasons that we've mentioned. That's been a key adoption thing for us, or I should say, a key thing for us to help when it comes to adoption. In fact, we've modified our quality content program approach to actually incorporate writer as part of the review and feedback process that happens. So our copy editor, who's on staff with us now, he saw it as a great opportunity to say, this is just as an FYI, these are some recommendations that have come through from writer, and let's talk through what these recommendations are, why they're meaningful, and that furthers for that person on the other end who's receiving the feedback. It lets them know, why is it that writer matters? Why is it that I just need to go and make sure that it's turned on? So that's helped considerably. But in terms of adoption, the other reason why we had that as a challenge is not everybody uses Chrome in our organization. And I mean, we ourselves, our products support a variety of web browsers. And so all of us are constantly using a variety of browsers to begin with. And so while Chrome may be one of the, of course, more widely used browsers, it's not the only one that we use. And for some, in particular, some teams who really found a focus in certain browsers, and in some cases for them, it might also have to do with other plugins that they rely on. Having that need for Chrome did result in an obstacle to adoption for them.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And in terms of team publishing, what we would do differently, I think without a doubt, a tool like Writer, had we had this even before team publishing became a program for us and became a success for us, would have made a world of a difference. Because again, a lot of what we had to do was basic grammatical changes and giving guidance on different terminology differences, and there's a lot of time in that, and so that alone, again, you're giving the person power to see that for themselves without even having to talk to anybody. So that would have made a big difference. I think the other one is just recognizing the value in different types of roles. And when you have a team of, right now, as we are only 4 people, being able to bring a program like this to scale and actually have it result in success it's just a matter of making sure you have the right roles. And it's one thing when you have 2 people who can manage various roles, and it's another when you have, even if you just have 4 people versus 2 who have specialized roles, to be able to run with certain aspects of your team's needs.
Well, Karl, this has been amazing. I'd love to ask you to look in your crystal ball for what you think knowledge management is going to look like in 5 years, not just for you all at iManage, but for the field in general. It's changed so much, even in just the last 10, I would say. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5?
I think, once again, we have the perfect segue. I think the biggest thing that you'll find with organizations in general is very large SaaS organizations and smaller SaaS organizations that are just now starting up. It's very easy from a content perspective for all of us to say, we need to just publish a bunch of materials, or we need to create this new site that talks about this part of our messaging or gives these specific answers. But meanwhile, let's spin up this other site, etc. And really what people need is, they want that experience like they have when they go to their favorite search engine. It's, I want to plug in something, get to it, and get the answer quickly and painlessly. And that's, I think, one of the biggest drivers that we're going to see across certainly several industries, but without a doubt within content management, within knowledge management, is finding that answer. And then the other element to that is being able to reuse that answer. Now I've found it. How do I know that I'm going to be able to come back to this resource? How can I share this with my colleagues? How can I make it more widespread knowledge? And so that's, these are, just a couple examples, I'm sure, of where we'll wind up. But I think those are 2 big ones: is ease of access, not having to put a lot of effort into finding the answer that you need. And when you're there, making sure that it is, of course, valuable, but reusable, that you're going to find this message in other places, or that you can share it with others and actually continue with the value stream.
Karl, this has been amazing. So exciting. Congratulations. I had no idea. I knew you guys were doing crazy stuff, but like what you've been able to do is remarkable. And I don't think anyone has done this. So kudos.